Alright guys, let's check out Samsung's 2019 compact flagship, the S10e. So we looked at the regular S10 not too long ago, and this phone is a phenomenal phone that Samsung actually never, we never got a true successor to this phone. And I think it was because at that time the market was, people wanted bigger phones. So with the S10 Plus, that phone was a 6.4 inch phone, and 6.4 inches is kind of small these days because most phones are at 6.8 inches. So I guess the S10e, it just didn't sell well, even though it was a really excellent flagship here. And this phone's battery isn't really all that great. Even when this phone first came out, fresh battery, it really didn't matter. You were only getting like 4 hours of screen on time with this phone. Now this phone, it's a true compact flagship because it's 5.8 inches, which I think for people with smaller hands, it definitely is a lot more comfortable than, let's say, a S24. Even though a regular S24 is 6.2 inches, this just is way more easy to hold, and yeah, it just feels like a way better device to one hand. Now, hardware-wise, this phone, again, very comfortable to hold. We got those curved edges. You actually do have a headphone jack on here with SD card support. So this was the last series before Samsung, started to take the headphone jack away. And then you also do have expandable storage on the S10e as well too. And then you also have this really nice design on the back here. You do kind of get like a different kind of color when it hits the light in a certain way, and it's very cool to look at. It is a fingerprint magnet, of course, and you have that dual camera setup. I think the camera design still looks pretty decent still. So overall, I do really like the design of this phone. It is a very adorable phone to look at and hold here. We also have the Bixby button over here as well. Up front, you do have a pretty nice display. It's a flat display, unlike the S10 and S10 Plus, which I think this display has aged better since Samsung actually has, recently just going back to flat displays. Everybody's kind of going back to flat displays now. It's a 5.8 inch display, dynamic AMOLED, HDR10 Plus. It is 1080p 438 for the PPI. This phone does have that really nice classic Samsung colors that we don't have anymore with the S24 series. And I really like the way that the screen looks. Of course, it is 60 Hertz, so I think that's the only thing that's kind of making it maybe feel a little bit older when picking it up. And then also the max brightness is not, all that great in direct sunlight. But I would say this is a fantastic display still. And a lot of people were putting like these cool little wallpapers right here where the punch hole is. And then I would say bezels are pretty respectable. You can see a little bit chunky, but still it looks like a, it's still a really good phone in 2025. And what I noticed about this phone, just navigating, it's a very quick phone too. Nothing about this phone feels slow at all. Like, it's very fast with the animations and everything. Gaming performance is still pretty good on the S10e. It has the Snapdragon 855 chipset on here. We're running Android 12, One UI 4.1. And then we also do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM on here. Performance is still good. We can still play Call of Duty pretty well. We can still play PUBG at HDR Extreme. It runs pretty smoothly at 60 frames. And I really haven't run into any issue. The only issue that you'll run into with the S10e with gaming is the actual hit to the battery life. So this phone, you will take a hit to the battery life, and it does kind of get a little bit warmer than I would like if you're playing for a long period of time. But besides that, it can actually still play games perfectly fine. It's just, it will I think maybe an hour of PUBG will really drain the phone's battery. But as you guys can see here, it's super smooth. Really no issues at all. And this is across the board pretty much for anything that this phone does. So just basically, going into applications like YouTube or just doing anything on your phone, it's still pretty smooth. You don't see a lot of glitching and lagging and stuff like that, which is really nice. So that was the one thing that I was mostly impressed with this device here. It's just how smooth and fluid everything is. Alright, so what about the cameras on the S10? And they have aged, pretty decently. It's a 12 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. There's no telephoto lens on here. And then we also can shoot in 4K 60. And then we also do have a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. The shots look pretty good on the S10 if you're in good lighting. It's just like a lot of old flagships. They can still give you a really good shot, and that's the same thing for video as well too. You can still get a really good shot. This phone makes everything a lot more colorful and more vivid than it actually is in real life, which is something that I noticed you may or may not like that. But I noticed Samsung kind of dialed that back. But yeah, the shots are pretty decent. But like I said, take it out of any type of good lighting, it'll get soft, it'll get a little bit grainy. The ultra wide is pretty decent on here. So looking back at these shots, I mean, they're pretty decent for, you know, this year of 2025, honestly. So I can't say that these are terrible looking photos. And yeah, so what do you guys think? Let's check out these speakers at max volume. These speakers are actually pretty loud. It's just the bass is not really that apparent on this phone, but it actually sounds pretty good. There's a lot of detail in these speakers. The top speakers put in a decent amount of work as well too. So overall, the speakers aren't that bad on here. Alright, so let's talk about the overall battery life experience. It's got a 3100 milliamp hour battery. And this phone, it is not a phone that is going to last you all day. It's like a 4-hour phone, and that's at its like max battery health, 4 hours and 30 minutes if you're a lighter user. But yeah, it's something that, you know, was the downfall of this phone. It was criticized a lot, but I still really like this phone, guys. It's got wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. And like I said, everything else about this phone is really solid. The battery, not the battery, but the display, the cameras, the processor, everything has really held up throughout the years with this phone. So what do you guys think of the S10e? Do you guys still have an S10e? Are you guys planning to upgrade to maybe an S25 or something like that? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.